What is a deferred submittal in construction? Now, I've done a video about this before and covered all of the ins and outs, but now we've got some questions back. It's been long enough since that first video. Now we're getting some questions back that I'm super stoked to answer right now that really dig into some of the details and really shed some light on this. So in the description below, we'll link you to the other video, and in this video, we're gonna dig even deeper. So if you're interested in that, stay with me. In the simplest field talk, a regular submittal is where the design is already complete. And really, the only thing that needs to be done, according to the specifications, is to select the equipment and material types, confirm the installation, and confirm the quality installation, quality assurance, quality control processes, and anything else the specs basically say. And so basically, you have a permit to build the work, and your submittal only really needs to go back to the architect because it's already permitted. And then once they approved, you go ahead and order it, install it, and build it, and the inspectors can reference the submittals if they want. Now, a deferred submittal means that we actually get to involve the engineering and the design and the submittal package and actually submit it to the city. It's not exactly like a permit, but you get approval from the city and the architect. And typically this means that there's design components that need to be finished, and that's why it's a deferred submittal. And so this isn't always the case, and I've actually found differences from municipality to municipality, but basically it means that typically there's engineering and design work that have to be done. You do submit it to the city either before or after the architect. They go through an approval process, there is a fee, it comes back, and that deferred submittal is now under the jurisdiction of the inspector for the AHJ. Okay, so that's what a deferred submittal is. But there's a couple of key questions here that will help us out with this that I want to cover now. What types of entities are typically deferred submittals? This is so awesome. Typically, it's anything that requires the trade partner's experience or expertise to design and engineer. One of my favorite examples, well, I'll just give you two real quick. One would be steel stairs. They need to design how the stairs are going to be built, and because the structural engineer for the design team doesn't know exactly how the trade partner wants to, and whether typically it's steel, right? How the steel contractor wants it to tie into the structure and how it's going to work and how they're going to assemble it, how they're going to crane it in. They don't want to run all the calcs and be responsible for it entirely. So they say this is a deferred submittal. The structural steel erector and their engineers will not only design and submit what kind of stairwell they want to build up through the building, depending on how much detail are in the drawings, but they'll actually do the remainder of the engineering on that and submit that package to the designers and to the city. Then you get approval from the city and now you're good to go. So the reason this is important is because you don't have carte blanche approval once you have your permit. You have to track these because you have to go to the city to get approval and then go do your work. So instead of just receiving the materials, it's do your submittals, get your deferred submittal approved, then get the materials, then go. So there's a longer lead time because of these process steps. Roof trusses are another thing, and I could go on. You could just type into ChatGPT and say, what are some typical examples of deferred submittals? But those are the examples. Anything that requires additional design or engineering, and also that the city typically requires. Real quick, I'll just tell you right now, you can call the city and say, what do you consider a deferred submittal according to your standards? And you'll find that the architect already knew that and identified deferred submittals in accordance with what the city regulations are. So that's the answer to that question. Who decides if a submittal can be deferred? Well, honestly, the city has the ultimate authority, but if there's any lenience, it's the design team with the owner. Third question is, what are the risks of installing something before the deferred submittal is approved? Well, it's massive risk. They could just make you rip it out. It could be rejected. You could have to change the material type. I've actually never heard of anybody doing that. So I hope that nobody's doing that. Maybe somebody's done it and it worked out, but I wouldn't even play around with it. And I don't know why the inspector, if I was the inspector, I wouldn't allow work to go on until it's approved either. So I don't think this is a good practice. I'm 100% no on this, and the risks are great. Another one is, how do I track deferred submittals on the field side? This is super cool. When we are plugging everything into Intact and we have our production plan and it all looks great, I'll typically have normal submittals and deferred submittals down here, and I'll tie them all to the actual activities with a buffer, right, and identify their supply chain. And so I'm always looking submittals, deferred submittals, and I'm tracking that at a minimum weekly in my strategic planning and procurement meeting, but also keeping an eye on it throughout, especially as project work starts that includes a deferred submittal. And what role does the inspector play with the AHJ with deferred submittals? Well, the deferred submittal does have to be approved by the city, so they have authority and they have jurisdiction over it. It has to be approved. Unless you're in some area where for some reason you didn't have to submit, or like you're out in some county somewhere and the requirements aren't very strict and the inspections aren't probably very strict. But if you have an inspector on site, they are going to want to see that that's approved. They do have everything to do with these deferred submittals because it's dealing with structure, it's dealing with the roof, it's dealing with life safety systems in some cases. They have everything to do with it, and that does not give us any more basically leeway or control over it. The inspector still has every right to inspect it and to prevent us from moving forward with work that's not approved. Basically, the main difference, unless there's something I don't know about, is just there's an additional process step. It's basically the design team didn't have to get the permit with you and the owner, that this is deferred. You get to do the permit or get the approval later because more design and engineering work needs to be done. So these are some awesome questions. I'll turn this into a blog post like I always do, so it's search engine optimized, and so you have a quick guide, but reach out to me if you have any other questions, and we'll link you to the longer video about deferred submittals. On we go.